Hey, welcome to the first edition of the 1620 Today podcast. We're very excited to bring to you this podcast from our brand new studio high above Town Square in downtown Plymouth. And I'm joined today by our co-host Beth. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am great. Fired up.
Yeah, I
Fired
can see
up.
that.
You can find our podcast on Spotify, plus on YouTube, and you can also watch it at 1620 Today. We'll probably, from time to time, clip small segments when our guest says something very interesting, and we'll probably post those on Facebook as well. All right, so our guest today is from Manomet. We're very happy to be joined by David Golden. He lives in Manomet with his family. He's in the real estate industry, and he has a significant career in higher education as well. He has a master's degree in public administration. He's now seeking his doctorate degree at Northeastern University, and he's also a candidate for town meeting in precinct number 7. David, welcome to the show. Thank you for being the first guest ever on our podcast.
Thanks for having me here, Jay Jack. I'm really excited to be here.
Great to have you. So let's just start off, David, and dive right into it.
Sure.
We're on the eve, so to speak, of town meeting, April 2nd, and it's going to be virtual. So I know that this is something that you've been very outspoken about in the most recent past. Plus, I know that you've also spoken about the mask mandate that happened earlier this year. But let's focus especially on town meeting coming up April 2nd. It's going to be virtual. Tell us why you think it should be in person.
Yeah. Well, first, I think the most important element of it is that town meeting is supposed to be a coming together of neighbors. The reality is that when you host something online, you lose a lot of the interaction that really develops relationships. You know, from the inception of Plymouth as a community, our town meetings have been held in homes and squares and public meeting places for over 400 years. And now we've defaulted, because of the virus, to a virtual meeting space. Where we are now with the current state of COVID, I think we should really be thinking about moving things back to in person, or hopefully the legislature will authorize the use of a hybrid meeting format in the near future. But there are big decisions being made at town meeting. Money's being spent to the tune of about $250 million. And it's all happening behind screens with little accountability, no meaningful input from the public. And, we're really losing our sense of community here in Plymouth. I've been here for 2 years now as a resident, two and a half years, and I've never attended an in-person meeting for select board, for town meeting, anything like that. And I've been highly involved in the communities that I've lived in the past. And so for me, it's really that I want to meet my neighbors. I want to meet the people who are making decisions that are quite costly for our community, and I want to talk to them about my opinions regarding those matters.
Now, technically, when the town meeting meets on April 2nd virtually, technically they can vote to recess. Mm-hmm. That's probably not the technical word, and actually come back and meet in person 2 weeks later at the Plymouth North. The chances of that, I'm guessing, are slim.
Yeah. So the first order of business that they're going to undertake is a question about whether or not they'll meet in person. If the town meeting members, a majority of them, decide that they're going to meet in person, the authorizing statute allows the moderator to continue the meeting for up to 30 days. That means it just disbands and they come back 30 days later. Now, the select board has passed a measure in order to have a date on, I believe it is the 16th of April, for town meeting to come back together. The moderator can still ignore that decision by the select board and do up to 30 days, and he's indicated that he plans to do so. I guess we'll see. I think if there's an overwhelming number of folks on town meeting who want to meet in person, I think the moderator's hand may be forced, and we will see them come together 2 weeks later. But the reality is that it will slow down the business of the town. We'll be operating for a couple of weeks without a budget. And this happened in 2020 as well. The moderator continued the meeting all the way until August. So
Governments do that for it. We don't need no budget.
Yeah, exactly.
We saw that at the State House many times.
Yep.
For sure.
Federal government.
State
Yeah.
government, everyone, but it's incredibly dangerous at the municipal level to postpone your spending decisions. Your police, your fire, your equipment, everything is touched by the town meeting. And so if you're waiting, that means that folks don't know how and where they can spend the money to provide service to the members of this community.
So I saw on Facebook a screenshot of the virtual voting system. It seemed like they put a lot of effort, or they got a vendor who knows what they're doing in order to record the votes appropriately. There are now approximately how many town meeting members? We're under 200, I guess.
I believe it's 135 right now.
135. And each precinct gets 9, but they're not all filled.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So the way that the town meeting will operate is that there needs to be a quorum based on the number of seats that are currently filled. So a majority of members will with active seats need to appear at the meeting. I understand that attendance has been up since we've been doing virtual meetings, but that's a positive consequence. But I believe that when you make a commitment as an elected official, regardless of whether or not you're able to meet virtually, you should be at the meeting. You should be making, your opinions known. You should be registering your votes, and you should be doing the business of the people who you ran to serve.
I remember where I grew up, we had a town meeting, and I had just turned 18, and so I went. It was at my high school auditorium in my hometown, and it was not representative town meeting. It was everybody town meeting, because it was a much smaller town. And like everybody was there. It was like, the people that I knew and respected because they were older than I just sat in the audience. I didn't say or vote, or I voted. And it was kind of like fun to get together with everybody that you knew. And there was something to that. And I know in the big picture, society is moving, everything's a screen, and we're all going to live in this type of contact lenses on our eyes, and we never have to leave the house type of thing, right?
Yep.
But I think there's this giant societal tug of war between screen society and in-person society, analog society, so to speak. So I hope that maybe not this time, because it seems like the ball's already rolling for this virtual thing. Let's just stick with that. But I certainly hope the next time we have town meeting, it's in person.
Yeah, for sure. I want to touch on what you said about the move towards a screen culture. I think that I want to make sure that folks know that I think technology is good. It allows us to do things like this, to have a conversation that will then be, displayed for other folks who aren't able to be here with us, right? I think that's true of government too. Accessing things like Zoom, these virtual voting platforms that you've touched upon, it allows for participation at a level that normally wouldn't be attained. There are reasons that folks can't attend these meetings. Family obligations, work commitments, travel. They're sick. We want those folks to stay home or do their other business. Sure. But if you have the time to also hop on and take a look at what your elected officials are talking about, and dare I say, even express your own opinion about these matters, I think that's a positive. That has a positive impact on our democracy. And so I think that utilizing Zoom platforms and things that are similar for adding folks to the conversation is incredibly important. But for the people who are elected to represent us, I think they got to be in person. Maybe in the interim, hopefully the legislature will allow for a hybrid format, and those folks who are elected and still concerned about their health and safety can participate in a virtual environment while others are in person. But down the line, I think it's absolutely necessary for our elected officials to be in person. Now, you talked about your town meeting growing up.
Yeah.
a lot of folks say that town meeting is the purest form of democracy, and they're absolutely right about that. We're a little bit different here in Plymouth. We have representative town meeting, which means that we select a number of people from various precincts. It's going to be 18 precincts in the upcoming election. So there's, I think it'll be 162.
I can't do the math, but sounds like that's about right, yeah.
I think 162 members who are making the decisions for our town. But there's still an opportunity for meaningful input from the public. And so I think that, using technology and an in-person component will, ultimately lead to us having a robust discussion about what kinds of things are happening in our town.
Well, let's talk about some of the things that are happening in
Before
the town.
you
You
go
want to
there-
jump in?
No,
Go
I was
ahead.
just thinking, like, if the schools are going mask-free, like, that doesn't make any sense that why we couldn't have a town meeting in person. I mean, if you're uncomfortable, you can wear a mask or sit in a, what do they have at Plymouth North?
I don't know.
Or is that what you said? I thought you said Plymouth North.
If it goes to a live meeting, it would be at Plymouth North on April 16th,
Well,
I
there's plenty
believe.
of space. I'm just saying, like, they could definitely
Absolutely.
mask
Beth.
up if they wanted to.
For sure. And
There doesn't seem to be any reason why they shouldn't.
the whole town's opening up. Mask mandates are only really on public transportation at this point in time, and in the hospitals. Public transportation is governed by federal law, and so once the federal government decides that the situation is safe enough, school buses, ferries, trains, buses, all of those things will be mask free. But everywhere else in Plymouth right now is, and so I've often expressed a lack of understanding as to why, given the Board of Health has decided that we can move to a mask advisory, where we protect those people who are most vulnerable to this virus, why our schools are mask free, why our restaurants and pubs and bars and concert venues and all other forms of entertainment are mask free, but our meetings are still virtual.
So I just want to make one more point, and then I want to dive into the town meeting, some town meeting stuff. But there's been a lot of policy hypocrisy.
Sure.
And one of the biggest ones, most recently, of course, where Kyrie Irving wasn't allowed to play in the game, but he was allowed to sit courtside and watch his own teammates.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then go to the locker room.
Yeah.
And so the mayor changed that in New York for athletes and performers, but not for regular people in their own jobs. So it's not really a relaxing of the mask mandate. It's more of a hierarchy.
We're creating two societies.
Yeah, so we can go down this road really far, but I want to get into, and maybe we will later. But let's talk about some warrant articles that are on the. So I know that Beth wants to chime in on this one. Right to farm, which is your ability to, grow stuff and have chickens, for instance. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this massive debate up in Danvers because someone had a goat. Yeah. And whether or not they were allowed to have a goat due to the zoning. And just full disclosure, I grew up with goats. And
I did not. Full disclosure, but they are really cute.
They are adorable. And I was in 4-H goat club. Now, you can hold that against me or not, but so I'm all for the goat and the chickens.
Let's not go down that road.
But right to farm. What do you think, David?
This has taken an odd turn for sure, Jack. I grew up in South Boston, so the most we had were outdoor cats, which may actually be less well behaved than an actual goat. But in terms of the right to farm, it's a really complicated issue, right? So right now the bylaw states that you have to have 5 acres or more on your parcel. The Conservation Commission is looking to remove that piece of the language to create a situation where any parcel could farm. That includes livestock. That includes agriculture growing crops. The commission has really committed, though, that they're not intending so that me on my half-acre parcel with my neighbor on a quarter-acre parcel are going to be in conflict because I suddenly have pigs on my property. Really what they're looking to do is to create what they're calling 21st century farming initiatives. So indoor growing, rooftop growing, things like that to make it so that folks can sustain themselves and create opportunities for more of a local agricultural market. So what they've relied on is health regulations as part of the bylaws that would prohibit things like me suddenly having 20 pigs on a half-acre parcel.
Right. You're not going to have a herd of buffalo.
Exactly.
Actually, the president just said yesterday that food shortages are going to be real.
Yeah.
He literally just said that yesterday. And what the Conservation Commission sounds to me as if they're promoting is the new version of the Victory Garden from the Second World War. And gardening used to be so much bigger. Everybody gardened. Well, a lot of people gardened. It was a much more popular thing. And I even remember my mother. She would grow tomatoes.
Yep.
We're from Mattapan. We would grow tomatoes. We had a garden. And gardening was for agriculture. Gardening for homegrown vegetables was a much bigger thing.
Absolutely.
Decades ago. You were
Yeah.
going to say, what happened to you had a friend that had she have a little farm stand or something?
Yeah, she had chickens, and I don't know that she had goats, but she, would sell her produce. And she would sell honey too, I think. I don't think she had bees or anything, but she got the honey somewhere. She was doing really well at it. But I don't know if it was the traffic in the neighborhood or what it was. She lived like on a cul-de-sac. But she definitely had to stop doing it. But this was a couple of years back, so yeah.
And that's
she
money
really
for-
enjoyed it, and she made some money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's money for the household, too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, Stevensfield. Stevensfield's coming
Yes.
up. It's right around the corner down the street. Doesn't look like anything's been really improved or even maintained for quite some time. I've seen the plan. It looks very ambitious. There'd be a utilization of the boat ramp, so to speak, which would probably relieve some of the demand for the regular boat ramp that's downtown. It's not nearly as steep, so you can only put a small. We actually have we call it the crappy aluminum boat. And so, if for me, like I really like the idea of going to the small little boat ramp. And the other things that are at the park. So you wanted to talk about that. You were really interested in talking about
Yeah,
that.
so Stevensfield is dilapidated at best. When you look at it, it's a section of our town that it's been forgotten. It's it's in a prime location too. It's right on the water. So the current article is designed to completely transform that space. It's going to be about a $3 million project. I think it's $2.95 million. It's going to provide new green space. It's going to provide new playground space. It's going to provide some athletic space as well, in addition to the opportunities for boat owners that you've touched upon, Jack. I think that it's going to be an invaluable asset for the community. I have a 3-year-old at home, and so we've gone to the playgrounds all around town, and nothing really touches upon the level of enjoyment that she can have at, for instance, Nelson Park.
Yeah.
This project will really transform that area of town to be a secondary Nelson Park type situation. And so, I think it's going to create a situation where not just the folks who live in the downtown area, but people who live all over Plymouth can come and enjoy sections of the waterfront that otherwise are going unused at this point in time.
I mean, this part of town does have the parade ground, which is right there, but that's not really. It's not for kids, so to speak, or recreation, and it's going to be just great for people. I mean, there's a lot of people that be able to walk down there.
Absolutely.
With their kids or with their family, or just down,
Yeah.
Have a coffee in the morning, enjoy the sunrise or whatever it is. It's going to be a lot nicer.
Do they still do the farmer's market there?
I don't know.
Not since I've lived here.
Okay.
My
They
wife
used
and
to
I
have
are
a
we are
pretty-
farmers market people.
They used to have a pretty decent farmer's market there. I don't recall when it stopped, though.
Yeah, I don't know. Not at least 2.5 years. We've gone to the
Yeah.
Kingston one quite a
Oh,
bit.
probably maybe because of COVID.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe because of the virus, yeah.
But I think even things like the Waterfront Festival that we have down here throughout the waterfront neighborhoods, this will allow for other opportunities for activities to happen during major events that are traditional here in town.
Sure, it's a great idea.
So I'm down with that. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Fur.
Yes.
So apparently there's an article, and I don't want to demean this person, but apparently it's part of a project.
Yes.
That they're working for school, whether it's graduate school, I'm not really sure. But apparently there's an article that would ban the sale of fur products in the town of Plymouth.
Yes.
All right, you go first on this one.
Sure. Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
actually, I think Beth wants to chime in too.
Well, I don't know anything about it yet.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the young woman who's sponsoring the article is quite passionate about the issue, and her drive is really to prevent cruelty to animals, right? I think that's what many of these kinds of regulations look to stem. I don't believe that it impacts folks who are raising animals for the purposes of later selling for the fur trade. It really impacts spaces that are retail spaces that are looking to sell fur. And frankly, I don't know of any in town that really are selling furs on a regular basis.
I would imagine that there are some, like maybe Dick's has some type of product that has a fur trim in it or something like that. But I don't. There's
Or a boutique like the one across the street that just opened. They might have gloves with. It's probably artificial. But
Right.
I'm not really sure.
I think a lot of folks have moved towards an artificial
Yeah.
fur product. It's generally cheaper to synthesize it than it is to raise an animal to.
So do we really need to ban it if it's not really?
I guess I can see it on both sides, right? So why do you ban it if it's not really happening? Well, if it's also not really happening, what's the harm in banning it? So for me, the article is really, it comes down to a philosophical question. Do we want to be a town that allows the sale of animal skins and furs? And so, my opinion on the matter is that we can pass this, and I don't think it will have a tremendous impact to businesses. But I do know that there's at least one person in town who has expressed concern to the Agricultural Commission, which is not really involved in the article in any significant way. But I personally don't think that it's going to have a major impact across the community, except to say that folks will feel better that we've supported something that protects animal rights.
But is it a giant, not a giant overreach of government, but I don't know. Do we really want to be a town that's going to sort of nitpick every little facet of just overreaching on things?
Absolutely.
I know I'm simplifying it.
And
there.
that's Beth, you're absolutely right. That's what the philosophical question is this the role of the government right now?
To virtue signal so we all feel better about ourselves for something that's really not an issue anyways.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, we have rescue dogs. Like, we're, obviously supportive of cruelty-free anything, but
I mean,
you got to draw the line.
I'm Goat Club here.
Yeah, right.
And I think this is rough. Even I would vote against that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's totally unnecessary. If you want to promote anti-cruelty to animals, then go out in the marketplace of ideas and do that.
Absolutely, and I think that the town is even an animal-friendly community already. I mean, the sheriff's office maintains a farm out on Obery, which is an awesome place for folks to bring their family. They treat those animals really well. They're staffed year round. It's a great place for kids to come and learn about animals. And there are a number of other farms throughout the community where we have horses, we have cows. We have every kind of livestock that you have in our community, and they're treated really well.
So we have a new town manager. I'm going to try to pronounce his name. He's been here before as an assistant a couple of years back. Derek, let's see, I did write it down just so I get Brindisi?
Correct.
Oh, okay, I got it right. Sorry, Derek, if I got it wrong, but I'm learning. Okay, welcome back to town, Derek. And now we have, this new atmosphere where the virus is gone. We've got a new town manager. Hopefully, this will be our last virtual town meeting. But yet, in the background of all that kind of new stuff, and I think people are feeling mildly optimistic, notwithstanding the overall economy issues that we have, big national issues, international issues we have. But, it does seem like there's a new start. But yet in the backdrop to that, we have this seemingly discussion battle about what type of government we're going to have. We have just a recently rather public fight between the Charter Commission and the Select Board, or some of the Select Board. And the Charter Commission has already voted. And this was not a big surprise given who ran for Charter Commission and who won. Elections have consequences. They said, we're going to keep town meeting. Even though we have about 62,000 people, Weymouth, who's gone to a mayor already several years ago, has 58,000. Framingham has a mayor; they have 72,000-ish. So basically, the basic three options, and there are subsets under this, but town meeting, town council, and mayor.
Yes.
All right. So apparently, those are two other options. They're off the table. We're sticking with town meeting.
Yeah, for now, that seems to be the case, and you're absolutely right, Jack. There's really a split on the Charter Commission. 6 folks who are in favor of the town meeting form of government, and 3 who are interested in exploring other types of government for the town. There is some, I think, middle ground on some issues. I think a lot of folks on the Charter Commission agree that the current form of town meeting isn't as responsive as we need as a community. Meeting twice a year as the only legislative body for a community isn't really efficient for the 24/7 society that we now live in. It just largely doesn't work. I am a pro town meeting person. I think it's an incredible tradition that we've had here in particularly in New England.
America's hometown.
Yeah, we certainly are, and it's a holdover from English society, but we really made it our own here in the States, and so I think preserving it is something that is important for the Commonwealth at large. Now, being a member of the citizenry here in Plymouth, I also recognize that we need our legislature to be more nimble in responding to the day-to-day needs of the citizenry. The commission has committed to really pulling apart the entire structure of our government while keeping that town meeting model. And so they're looking at things like the committee of precinct chairs to be sort of like an interim town meeting. It's a middle ground.
This kind of seems like, to me, this kind of seems like a very small concession and tinkering around the edges. It doesn't seem like a big substantive change.
Yeah, well, they're looking to have it almost operate as a town council in between town meetings, which could be a really innovative form of government. It would certainly be new for Massachusetts, but it could also create some points of friction between the larger town meeting body and the committee of precinct chairs.
Yeah, so whenever you create like two little bodies, then there's going to be tension.
And is Plymouth grown to the point where our population is just grown like incredibly?
Yeah.
I mean, remember, 30 years ago, it sounds like a long time, but in the growth of the town, I mean, they had a regional school.
Right.
30 years ago, and now we have 2 high schools and 2 middle schools. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that works for.
Well, I think especially a charter commission shouldn't be really thinking about what works now. They should be thinking about works 5, 10, 20 years from now.
Absolutely, for sure. And I think that the situation is such that eventually we're going to need to change our form of government here in Plymouth. A town council meets consistently. They meet weekly, if not multiple times per week, depending on what's going on in your community, right? And so that's, I think, the direction that we're going to go eventually. But it seems for now we're gonna stick with the town meeting model. There are ways that you can do town council and a town manager and still maintain that select board the select board appointment of the chief executive in town through the town council, or you could just simply go the mayor town council route. Plymouth is not just about population. I think we're a complex community, even beyond just the number of people who live here.
Big.
Yeah,
it's the biggest.
Yeah, we are. I believe we're the largest land area town in all of New England. And so,
definitely Massachusetts.
Yeah.
When I tell my people that I have to drive 8 miles to get to downtown,
How many exits we have?
and it's basically a straight line.
Right.
They're like, what?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
when you tell someone, I have to go to exit this or exit that, it's like.
I mean, you can drive anywhere in
It's
town.
like we live in Wyoming.
Yeah, I mean, you can go drive from one end of town to the other, and have been gone for 45 minutes.
It
And
costs you $83 in gas.
right, exactly.
Oh,
And really, we have like 5 or 6 different towns too. You live in Manomet as well as I do. We're a beach community. The downtown area, we're very much a city up here. We're a small city. Smaller buildings, but we have everything that any other city would have. Entertainment venues. We have bars and restaurants. We have meeting spaces. We have commercial. We have industrial. You look all across town. There are unique neighborhoods everywhere you look. And so I think that to meet the demands of the larger community, eventually we're going to need to pivot. Unless this new form of government that we're endeavoring towards, where we have sort of two legislative bodies in town, ends up working out really well. I think as long as town meeting works, we should keep one. But looking 10, 15, 20 years down the line, what is Plymouth going to look like, and how are we going to be able to respond to the needs of an ever-growing population and an ever-changing community landscape?
So let's talk about where the real power is.
Yeah.
Okay. All things Plymouth.
Yes.
All right. And Facebook in general and the internet in general, right? So last year you were out there advocating for a certain mask policy. I was joining you.
Yes.
Even though I've never met you before this episode. Our first episode here at the 1620 Today podcast, which you can watch on Spotify or YouTube or at 1620today.com.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, right. Where's the subscribe pillow? It's over there. But, it seems as if when you were just talking about different forms of government, all of that sounds like great when we have some type of core unifying values and decorum in public life.
Mm-hmm.
And it like if you post, and I was joking with Beth before, if you go on All Things Plymouth or on the Facebook or wherever and you say the sky is blue,
It's toxic.
You're most likely going to get somebody who disagrees with you. The sky is blue.
But then
It's not.
You also get a lot of people that just go on there to,
Troll.
bust your chops and
Yeah.
whatever.
There is that. So in being outspoken, I mean, why did you do that? Why didn't you just stick to your job, keep your head down? There's a lot of bad, negative. There's very little upside to speaking out and speaking your mind. Why the hell did you do that?
My wife asked the same question, Jack. Social media has certainly changed the game, but I think even before that, the discourse in our country has really changed, and I think that's largely due to the 24/7 news cycle. And I think that the gotcha politics and the cancel culture, they've all sort of they've evolved out of this 24/7 connection to issues that people get fired up about, right? All Things Plymouth, I think, is a great example of toxic culture, like Beth said, where it's the purpose of the group is to create connections among community members who otherwise wouldn't be able to meet up, talk, discuss, find resources to learn more about the community. There are all kinds of positive benefits to All Things Plymouth, and when it's working, it works really well. Then you get into these debates, and I think Beth said that there are people on there who are trying to get you. There are a lot of folks who will post something simply to get an argument started. When I started posting on All Things Plymouth,
For entertainment.
yeah, and
Right.
it can be entertaining to see how people sort of spin out of control.
It can be funny. I mean, they posted, remember the blue building? I don't know if you
Yeah.
were here for that.
Yep.
I mean, that was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean that was a year's running joke, right?
Easily. It's still a joke.
Yeah, it crops up every now and again. The guy
Ice
who
machine.
the guy who parks down at
I saw him
The
already
waterfront.
this year.
Yeah,
I
I
saw
mean-
him a couple of weeks ago.
Which
There-
guy?
He parks down by the waterfront
in his pickup.
in a launch
Oh, right.
Yeah,
in a beach chair.
he sets up in the back of his pickup.
Oh, I
he-
saw him at
he-
Long Beach. I mean, at the beginning of Plymouth Beach.
And I saw him like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We had like maybe 2 hours of warm weather.
Yes.
Yeah.
in March,
Yes.
and he was down there.
He doesn't
Of course,
miss a
so
beat.
was I down there. I was like, this is a good day to go down to eat lunch.
Yeah, absolutely.
At the waterfront.
So there are all kinds of funny things that are happening on this group, but then there are some certainly divisive issues, and the mask mandate was without question a divisive issue for our town. I think when I started posting, it was really for me to voice my opinion in a public forum. In the absence of being able to do so in front of my neighbors at meetings of the select board, the Board of Health, and things like that. The reason I started posting was because the original mask mandate, when it came back in December, extended to folks age 2 and older. And I think I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that I have a 3-year-old at home. And Emma has some sensory processing issues, as most toddlers do. She's still learning how to be a person. And imposing a mask upon that, I felt, was really unfair to her. And it was unfair to her daycare providers, who would no doubt have to spend the entire day policing masks. And I just didn't think that was going to be a situation that would work. Now, I went before the Board of Health, and immediately they retracted the 2 and over. They changed it to 5 and over, which was the original recommendation by the CDC and the state government. Anyways, so for me, I felt that the mask mandate was a classic case of government overreach. So I had to do something about it. And when I posted on All Things Plymouth, I really wanted to find other folks who aligned with my thinking on the matter. And I did, for sure. And I got a lot of pushback. My approach, though, was to be kind and be engaging without imposing my own beliefs on other people. So if you followed each of the threads, basically what I did every single time was I would register a public comment. Either I would give it myself, or I would ask someone on the staff to read it at Board of Health meetings and Select Board meetings over the course of the month and a half or so that the mandate was still in place. After I would do that, I would then go on and say what I said, because I think it's important to stand behind your words, and also what the action taken by each of those boards was. Because I think a lot of people are just letting decisions be made in a vacuum, and they're not engaging in the political process.
Well, that's true in a way, because it's so first off, people are busy.
Yeah.
And they got other problems, inflation, I got the job, whatever it is.
Yep.
There's always been that.
For sure.
And now, like, if you speak up, it's like we've had people on both sides of the spectrum, like lose their job, or be ostracized by their friends and neighbors, or whatever. So and this comes from both sides of the spectrum,
For sure.
to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a difficult environment. So I'm glad you did that, and I'm glad that you felt like it was important enough for you and your family to speak up and say something.
For sure.
And there were plenty of people that said it on the other side.
Yeah.
So did you learn anything from that, like that experience? You obviously are now running for town meeting member, so you weren't thoroughly discouraged.
Yeah, no, I wasn't at all. That this issue really was what spurred me pulling papers for town meeting. I had originally, so last year when we decided to make, or 2 years ago, I guess, when we decided to make Plymouth our permanent home, I had pulled papers for the school committee, and I was actually really discouraged when.
And you thought about running for selectman this year.
I did, yeah. I was really discouraged, though, when I first pulled papers, because none of the local organizations where you would normally find people outside petitioning for, state office, public office, that sort of thing, they weren't allowing people to stand outside and collect signatures. And so I felt like it was only the Plymouth elite, the old names, they were allowed to run. But Joe Schmo like me, who's new to the community but still wants to make a difference, couldn't get involved.
I would tell you that there is a rule about electioneering. Is that the word, Beth? Electioneering within near a polling place.
Yes.
Which may be not as super enforced in South Boston as.
Yes.
So
for sure.
we at one time lived in the North End,
Yeah.
and nobody paid attention to that
Right.
rule there either. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah, but so this was before the actual election. I was trying to gather signatures just to get myself on the ballot. And I contacted several supermarkets, the local pharmacies and things like that to see if I could just stand outside and gather signatures. And the answer was emphatically no from every organization. So I was discouraged at that point in time. This year, I decided that I was going to pull papers on select board because I really felt that there needed to be some fresh ideas in town. But as I started to get really involved in the different workings of the sort of public scene here in Plymouth, I realized that a lot of the rules making is happening at the town meeting level, and really our budgeting priorities are being decided there, and that's what I really want to be involved with moving forward. And this issue is what exposed me to that. What did I learn from the process, though? I think it's important to listen to people, even those people who disagree with you. And that's such a simple thing to say, right? And that should be, common knowledge.
Sound like a politician.
Well, I am running for office.
Don't listen.
No one listens. And
true.
and I think that I think there were some folks who maybe I didn't sway their opinion, but there were some folks who I definitely educated through this process. And I learned from folks what was happening. For example, there was a woman who engaged in almost every post that I made, who is a nurse and was engaging from the perspective of a nurse and the bed crisis that was happening in hospitals around the Commonwealth. And so I was learning from those folks as well and gaining perspective that I didn't necessarily have beforehand. So really for me, I think, what I learned the most is that if I am going to be someone who aspires to leadership in town, I got to get out there and learn from the people who I want to serve.
Well, thanks for participating in.
Yeah, you're incredibly well spoken.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And our first ever
Really?
1620 Today podcast. So I really appreciate you being here. I had heard you speak
great.
at a couple of meetings. As that guy's going to be pretty interesting. And you, what do you know? He ended up. He doesn't like goats, but he ended up being pretty interesting.
They're so cute.
I do love goats, actually. I love goat's milk. I love goat's
Oh,
cheese.
goat cheese is the best.
We actually, real quick, my best friend from high school, his mother lived in Somerville, and we, when we were younger, tried to petition to get her a goat. We failed. Interestingly, the government in Somerville didn't want there to be a goat living in a triple decker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That
No
makes a little
goats.
bit of
Yeah,
sense,
that's a-
but that's funny. Somerville.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, David. Wishing you the best of luck with your campaign.
Yeah.
There's 9 slots. How many people are running in your precinct so far?
as of the 22nd, there were only 4 folks who had pulled papers.
I'm feeling good for you then.
I do too. I would like a competitive race, but I also don't mind if
Slide
I
in there.
simply slide in.
Someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thank you so much. Remember,
Thank
you can
you.
watch the 1620 Today podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or at 1620today.com. I'm your host, Jack Gately.
Signing
and
off.
This is Beth. And of course, you heard from David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
See you next time.
That's fun.